Toronto-based New York Times bestselling author and master of psychological suspense thrillers, Linwood Barclay returns to Morning Live with a riveting thriller in which the possible heirs of a dying tech millionaire are mysteriously being eliminated one by one. Linwood Barclay, good morning. I love Find You First.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that. That's every author wants to hear that sort of feedback.
Well, already a hit in the UK and huge sales here in North America now that it's out.
Yeah, it's going really well. It doesn't matter how many books you do. Every time one comes out, you think, gosh, because authors, I think, are just generally pessimistic. We think this will be the one that tanks, but things are going all right.
Well, I'm looking at a quote from a guy who knows what he's talking about, Stephen King. Starts with a bang, ends with an even bigger one. It's the best book of his career. I couldn't put it down. He's a huge fan. He has read every one of your books, and he says this is your best yet.
Yeah, that's I just think it'd be rude to argue with him about that. He's been tremendously supportive, and he just loved this one. I was hearing from him once back and forth while he was in the middle of it, just loving it. So that's very gratifying, and to have someone that kind of support is pretty nice.
Well, is that kind of a pinch me deal? Like, okay, now I know I've made it.
It certainly helps. As I say, I mean, I think authors are, like I said, a lot of us are terribly insecure and terribly worried.
A neurotic bunch.
We're just a terrible bunch to live with. And so we just think, well, if there's good news, that means there must be some bad news coming, And in fact, I think that if you're a thriller writer, you're always looking at the world as like, how could this go horribly wrong?
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And because that's our bread and butter, that's the way we see the world.
Speaking of things going horribly wrong, okay, quick for Morning Live viewers, quick snapshot synopsis of Find You First.
Yeah, we've got a wealthy tech guy. He's in his 40s. He finds out that he has an incurable disease that has a very high likelihood of being passed on to the next generation. Well, everyone thinks, well, he doesn't have kids, but in fact he does. He was a sperm donor a couple of decades ago, and he knows there are at least 9 possible folks out there who might have this. And so not only does he want to find them to say, warn them about this possible condition, but also who's he going to leave his money to? So this would be to divide his estate. And once he embarks on this trek to find these people, they all start vanishing without a trace, one by one, before he can get to them.
Where did you get the idea for this?
Well, I think one of the sparks, there were a couple things. One, of course, is, this is a thriller I couldn't have written 10, 15 years ago, because now you turn on the news at night and there's another ad for somebody who says, well, send us a bit of your saliva DNA and we'll find out everything about you. Yeah. And the other thing was there was a piece in a magazine a couple of years ago where a woman would track down sort of her half siblings from sperm donation and track them down through these sort of DNA services. And she did a photo essay of them. And it was kind of, a heartwarming, interesting piece. And of course, as I say, being a thriller writer, I looked at that and I thought, I wonder how that could go horribly wrong. and I think those were kind of the jumping off points when I started working on this.
Now, we've talked about this before because you knew from a very early age you wanted to be a writer, and you worked in newspapers for years. But you're very much a child of television, grew up and you love the screenwriting and all those shows. And I think that's in your books, just the pacing and the arcs and the hooks at the end of each chapter, almost like a commercial break. When you're writing, are you casting in your head as well?
No. Not really, but it's true that I am a kind of kid of the 60s who was absolutely addicted to all the great crime and spies. I mean, here's I am drinking out of my Man from Uncle mug, Yeah. And so that was great, tremendous inspiration. So as a kid, I started writing at the age of like 11, 12, 13, what we would call fan fiction today, where I would write my own stories based on characters created by other people. And I got my dad to teach me how to type at like the age of 10 because I could crank these things out faster. And but I don't think about who would play these parts. I'm not seeing that, but I am kind of visual when I'm writing. I am kind of visualizing everything that's happening as if it was we're on a screen.
Before we go, another thing you do when you're not writing, you're down in your basement with your train set. We got to give this a plug. There's some video from your Twitter feed here. It is unbelievable. And actually, your son, Spencer, he helped out. He's working with Little Canada as well.
Right. That's right. Little Canada, an exhibit that's supposed to open at Yonge and Dundas. It'll be fabulous kind of big entertainment, a destination where you can go and see Canada in miniature.
Well, that's just incredible.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
our son Spencer would, help me working on the model railway going back to when he was like 3 or 2 years old, and so he's now pursued this as a career. He's working for them full time, making structures and getting it all ready. And so
Yeah, they were on the show recently. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So pre-COVID, of course, he was coming over helping me with this one, building the Niagara escarpment. And so forth. But
well, we got to go. But listen, continue. By the way, you say you're writing 2,000 words a day, and then you're down in the train set. Are you still married, Linwood?
Yes. Oh, yes. Everything's working. Okay. Everything's working out.
Okay, good. Anyways, congratulations with Find You First, and we look forward to your next visit and your next book. But in the meantime, we'll see you at the top of the bestsellers list.
Thanks, Paul.